In the far reaches of the galaxy, past war-torn star clusters and black holes too volatile to chart, a legend roamed in silence. The Dracari. Beasts shaped like dragons, bred not from myth but from cold, deliberate evolution. They ruled not with diplomacy, but with domination. Their wings never flapped in atmosphere, they flew through space itself, propelled by plasma bones and void-forged armor. No species had ever studied them and lived. Not even the archivists of Vale Prime had written more than one phrase about them. Asterisk. We were not ready. Asterisk. On Station Aegis 7, orbiting the dying world of Taris 4, a single child played with a plush rabbit. 7 years old, hair the color of rusted copper, eyes bright with curiosity despite the vacuum of stars beyond the reinforced glass. Emily. She was a biologist's daughter, living among adults who rarely spoke in anything but data. She drew stars with crayon wax, named comets after her dreams, and talked to her toys like they understood. She had no siblings. Her mother ran oxygen systems. Her father calculated solar flares. Emily made up songs to keep the silence away. On the 46th rotation of the moon, the silence broke. They came with no warning. No scanner saw them coming, no alarm had time to scream. One moment, the station lights blinked. The next, the Dracari vessel had folded out of vacuum space, disassembling all transmission waves like paper to fire. The station died instantly. No explosions. Just absence. In its place, metallic vines from the Dracari dreadnought wormed inward, pulling what remained into containment. They didn't take anyone else. Only her. Tiny, confused, clutching her rabbit. She did not scream when they surrounded her. She looked up. The Dracari were nothing like fairy tale dragons. No scales, just fractal-plated obsidian, grown like armor over a skeleton forged in stellar furnaces. Their faces were jagged ridges and optical receptors, burning in pale spectrums unknown to humans. Their limbs moved with slow, deliberate menace. 5 of them stood still as a sphere of magnetic coils descended, encapsulating her in a field of alien geometry. From within a chamber high above the others, the Watcher observed. Not a title, an identity. Its name could not be spoken in sound, only interpreted through psychic wavelets. The Watcher had seen countless creatures die, dissected their patterns, catalogued their genes. This human, this child, was the first of its kind they'd captured alive. The Watcher noted the creature's strange size, the lack of armor, no venom glands, no energy organs. Fragile skin. Odd proportions. It concluded the species was weak, a failed design. Yet something made it pause. The eyes. So vibrant. Unfiltered light reflected from them in ways no prey species exhibited. Emily waved. She didn't cry. She smiled. Her voice, small and unshaken, pierced the silent chamber. Hi! No translator understood it, but the tonal patterns were logged. Non-threatening. Upward inflection. Curiosity. She lifted her rabbit. Shook its paw. This is Mr. Nibbles. He's brave. The Dracari didn't respond. They were incapable of interpreting symbolic empathy. Their species had long since discarded emotions, replaced with neural efficiency. Words were tools. Feelings were static. Yet the girl kept speaking. Are you robots? You look like dinosaurs, but cooler. The Watcher broadcast a command, initiate bioscan. Tendrils of light scanned her body. They detected elevated serotonin, no stress markers. She was not afraid. This contradicted their models. All sentient prey, when isolated, surrounded, and stripped of sensory comfort, exhibited panic. Terror. Even the battle-hardened warbreeds of Sector 8A succumbed to psychological collapse within an hour. But not her. She sat cross-legged on the metallic floor, pulled out a small piece of paper from her pocket, and began drawing. With a stubby crayon. A star. A sun. And something that looked like a dragon, but smiling. Down in the observation tiers, Dracari Watchers studied her brainwaves. Unpredictable. Spikes of creative patterning. No symmetry. Chaotic loops. yet harmonious. Like a language written in emotion, not logic. The watcher tagged her with a new classification, Aberration Class 01. Above her cell, 6 observers watched, unmoving. She looked up again and asked, "Can I have some juice?" No response. She waited a moment, then nodded as if they had answered. "Okay. I'll pretend." She poured imaginary juice into a cup made of nothing and handed it upward, as if expecting someone to take it. One of the younger Dracari, unranked and silent, twitched. A small, involuntary movement of its claw. It didn't know why. Emily yawned and curled up with Mr. Nibbles beside her. The silence returned. But now it felt different. The watcher logged a final note before closing the cycle. Anomaly stable. Monitor for contamination vectors. Yet in a small corner of that dreadnought's vast, unfeeling halls something stirred, a flicker. Not light. Not heat. Something older. Forgotten. And very human. Emily woke to silence, broken only by the low hum of the Dracari dreadnought. Her cell remained unchanged, cold, metallic, illuminated by a dull glow that pulsed like a heartbeat. She sat up slowly, hugged Mr. Nibbles, and began to hum. Outside the containment field, dozens of Dracari observed. A swarm of black eyes studied her from unseen alcoves, neural pulses transmitting data back to the command core. The watcher analyzed her sleep patterns, dreaming intervals, heart rate variability. Nothing indicated stress. Even in captivity, she showed no fear. Emily stood and stretched. She faced the barrier, raised her hand, and waved. "Good morning," she said, not expecting a reply. She pulled the paper she'd drawn on the day before and added to it with the same crayon. A new creature appeared beside the smiling dragon, round, with antennae and a crown. She whispered, "Queen Gigglebug?" The watcher logged increased neurological activity. Creative cortex stimulation, high-frequency firing. It sent the data to Zerthal, high-ranking strategist and neuroarchitect. He reviewed the sequence without emotion, but something in the pattern unsettled him. Too irregular to predict. Too fluid to model. A system born from chaos, yet somehow balanced. The girl laughed. She held up her drawing, pressed it to the barrier. "I made this one for you. You can be the King Dragon." Zerthal had been in over 87 campaigns across 11 galactic arms. He had witnessed the collapse of civilizations and dismantled empires. No weapon, no creature, no simulation had ever made his subminds hesitate. But for a fraction of a second, he did not know how to respond. The watcher sent him a direct query, asterisk. "Emotional fluctuation detected. Clarify." Asterisk. He did not answer. Instead, he authorized vocal projection into the cell. A synthetic voice filtered through layers of translation. Asterisk. "State your designation." Asterisk. Emily blinked. "What's that mean?" The voice repeated, asterisk. "Identify your species, role, and classification." Asterisk. "I'm Emily. I'm 7. I draw stuff and eat spaghetti. Mr. Nibbles is my deputy." Zerthal halted playback. The file contained no discernible data of tactical value. Yet he found himself reviewing it again. The cadence, the inflection. Her tone lacked fear. It was sincere. She wasn't pretending. He switched to silent observation. Inside the cell, Emily began to sing. Soft, slow notes, with no clear structure. A lullaby. It had no pattern recognizable by Dracari auditory systems. But beneath the pitch, under the rhythm, came something unexpected, resonance. Across the observation net, multiple neural clusters experienced temporary sync disruption. Low-priority systems faltered for milliseconds. One technician-class Dracari dropped a data rod and stared at nothing. Zerthal initiated a bioecho replay. The song's harmonics bore a similarity to ancient Dracari pre-split transmissions, before emotion had been excised from their genome. It was impossible. No species outside the Dracari had ever accessed those frequencies. He isolated the pattern and traced it to the prime record, the last archived sound before the great purge of feeling. It matched. Not exactly, but closely enough. He requested permission to observe her directly. Denied. He went anyway. When he entered the chamber, she clapped. "You're huge." Zerthal did not respond. His body stood twice the height of the chamber, black plates rippling with energy. He lowered his head slightly, eyes unblinking. Emily stepped closer. "You're the one who talks weird." He processed the statement and logged it as meaningless. Yet something about the tone lodged in his memory buffer. She stepped forward again, undeterred. Her small hand pressed against the barrier. He extended a claw, hesitated, then made contact. There was no spark. No damage. No skin triggered. Just warmth. She said softly, "It's okay. I'm not scared of you." He knew she should be. She was fragile. Unarmored. Alone. Every protocol indicated fear was optimal. Instead, she giggled. "You remind me of a big puppy with spikes." A flicker of stored memory, not his, but genetic, surfaced. A feeling with no word. Something like being seen. He pulled back. The Watcher intercepted his feed. Asterisk. Contamination vector confirmed. Quarantine required. Asterisk. Zerthal returned to the command nexus. Behind him, Emily sang to her rabbit. Down the corridors of the dreadnought, echoes moved, soundless, shapeless, unfamiliar. The data log said she was an anomaly. But something deeper had already started to change. Alarms pulsed silently within the Dracari neural grid, no sound, only instant flashes of warning across shared thought. The anomaly had persisted beyond all models. A human child showing no psychological degradation under captivity was unprecedented. Worse, the emotional variance now spread among observers. A system-wide review was ordered. The High Inquisitor, a being of brutal clarity and unyielding purpose, took control. Protocol dictated that all cognitive disruptions be neutralized. The child was labeled a contagion. Termination was scheduled. Zerthal opposed the order. He submitted a report outlining deviations in neural pathways among those exposed to the anomaly. Not decay, but growth, new networks forming, unused memory archives activating, long-dormant sectors coming alive. He argued this wasn't corruption. It was restoration. His appeal was denied. The Watcher remained silent. It continued to log behavioral metrics, even as the command to purge was approved. In the containment sphere, Emily sat drawing a series of shapes. Circles within circles. At first glance meaningless, but their symmetry aligned with forgotten Dracari healing symbols. She sang again. The melody matched a cadence once used in ancient rituals, before those were banned and erased. A signal traced from her cell triggered a subroutine buried in the Dreadnought's systems, an echo linked to obsolete DNA scripts. Buried code began to stir. The ship didn't recognize the source, only that something long sealed had responded to her voice. Dracari across the vessel experienced irregularities. One technician collapsed, unable to process a surge of emotion. Another withdrew entirely from the neural link. A third began scratching strange symbols into the walls, unaware of their meaning. The High Inquisitor gathered all primary observers. He presented the data coldly, evidence of mental drift, systemic instability, reduced tactical cohesion. The source was clear. The human. He issued an immediate kill directive. Zerthal intervened. He initiated an override, citing emergency variance protocol. It triggered a brief deadlock, forcing the command hierarchy into debate. Such conflict was rare. Dracari were bred for unity, not dissent. But now, disagreement spread like fracture lines through stone. While they argued, Emily was relocated. Quietly. A junior data weaver named Val made the decision without permission. He acted on instinct, something no Dracari was meant to possess. He moved her to a maintenance sphere near the ship's core, beyond normal observation. He said nothing. He simply watched her draw. She looked up at him and smiled. "You're not like the grumpy one." He didn't know what she meant. She held out a picture. It showed a creature like him, but with a flower on its chest. You look better with colors. Val didn't take the drawing. But he didn't destroy it either. The purge order progressed. Drones were dispatched to locate and eliminate the anomaly. When they reached the original chamber, it was empty. Confusion spread. For the first time in generations, the Drakari command lattice experienced delay. In the core, Emily continued her drawings. One glyph pulsed faintly. The floor beneath her responded, metal shifting subtly, aligning with ancient patterns. Val stepped back as the floor lit up. Data lines ignited. The system recognized her presence. Not as an intruder, but as a trigger. A relic buried deep within the ship's architecture, coded to genetic markers older than recorded Drakari history, activated. The Heartstone. No current entity understood its function. It had been left dormant, its purpose forgotten. But now, it reacted to Emily. Not her biology, but something deeper. Her intent. A pulse emitted across the vessel. It was not light nor sound. It was memory. Images, sensations, echoes of ancient warmth flooded Drakari minds. The warmth of connection, the safety of trust, the terror of vulnerability, but also its joy. Zerthal staggered as the wave hit him. He remembered things never taught, an image of another beside him, a voice without modulation, a moment of peace unconnected to conquest. The High Inquisitor screamed, not in fear, but in hatred. He recognized what was happening. Emotion returning. A regression to him. A plague. He issued the final directive. Burn it all! Flames ignited in the purge chambers. Entire memory archives began deletion. But it was too late. Across the dreadnought, sectors refused commands. Units froze mid-task. Drones turned idle. Drakari officers stared at nothing, lost in memories that shouldn't exist. In a hidden maintenance chamber, Emily whispered to her rabbit. They're waking up. No one taught her how. But she knew. The Heartstones surged again. Not with energy, but with memory, deep ancestral echoes that bypassed logic and forced recognition. Across the dreadnought, the pulse spread faster than fire, ignoring walls, nodes, and encrypted systems. It was not data. It was presence. Every Drakari connected to the neural web received fragments. Images of skies they had never flown, warmth they had never felt, names they had never spoken. For the first time in their recorded existence, silence broke. Not external silence. Internal. The noise of absolute control, the constant rhythm of collective command, faltered. In its absence came awareness. Individual. Isolated. Alive. The High Inquisitor severed from the network by force, slamming himself into a sealed command loop to retain autonomy. He activated the dreadnought's core weapon, a compression singularity to collapse the ship into itself. Clean deletion. Eradication of every trace of infection. Zerthal intercepted the trigger sequence. He flooded the conduit with false paths, delaying the ignition loop. He had once dismantled planets without hesitation. Now, for reasons he could not verbalize, he fought to preserve a child. He wasn't alone. Others broke rank. Val transmitted unauthorized commands, shielding Emily's location. A transport technician rerouted drone patrols. A weapons engineer disabled the primary fuse line. None coordinated. No orders were given. Yet they acted. Individually. Voluntarily. Unthinkable. The Watcher did not intervene. Its last recorded action was a single notation, made before its mind slipped into dormancy. Asterisk. She reminds us of who we were. Asterisk. In the core chamber, Emily stood quietly. She had stopped drawing. Instead, her hand rested on the glowing floor. Her touch had stabilized the Heartstone. The ship, ancient and built for war, had begun to remember its first function, not conquest, but creation. Before the Purge, before war became purpose, the Drakari had been builders. Guardians. They had erased that identity to become perfect. But identity, once born, doesn't vanish. It hides. And she had found it. Security sentinels arrived. Their forms were massive, nearly impervious, designed for extermination. They did not hesitate. Protocols overrode all hesitation. They moved to strike. But as they entered the chamber, they stopped. Emily looked at them. She didn't speak. They froze. For a moment, nothing moved. Then one of them knelt. Its weapons powered down. Not by order. By choice. Emily stepped forward past them. The Heartstone's pulse was now steady. The surrounding walls began to shift. Not as defenses, but as something older, a cathedral of memory. Symbols bloomed along the surfaces, not mechanical but alive with meaning. Drakari units across the dreadnought fell to their knees. Some wept, though they had no glands designed for it. Others spoke names they didn't know they remembered. 1,000 generations of suppression shattered in moments. Zerthal entered the Heartstone chamber. He removed his armor casing. His true form, organic, raw, vulnerable, emerged for the first time since the genetic edits were made eons ago. He bowed to her. Not as a soldier. Not as a leader. But as someone who remembered. The High Inquisitor breached the chamber last. His form glowed with weaponized fury, his body reinforced by reactive plating and scorched coating. He moved like a storm, blade arms gleaming with quantum edge. He raised his weapons. Anomaly must be purged, he growled. No one moved. Not the sentinels. Not the guardians. Not even Zerthal. Emily stepped between them. Her voice was calm. Why are you so angry? The Inquisitor hesitated. He did not understand the question. He lunged. Zerthal moved faster, intercepting the strike. Not with strength, but with an open gesture, arms wide, weaponless. The blade stopped a breath from his core. He whispered, "You're afraid." The Inquisitor trembled. "No," he said. But he was. Not of her. Of remembering what it meant to feel. The Heartstone pulsed again. Stronger. Deeper. The weapon dissolved in his hand. He collapsed to his knees. Emily walked to him. She placed her hand on his face. He didn't resist. And he wept. Not for her. For himself. For all of them. Around them, the dreadnought began to transform. Lights shifted. Weapons retracted. Walls softened. The ship exhaled, not air, but release. It no longer recognized its classification as a warship. It had remembered its name. And it was hers now. Emily sat at the center of the Heartstone chamber, surrounded by the silence of resolution. No orders were spoken. No alarms blared. The dreadnought no longer roared with tension or directive. It simply existed, still and aware, as if holding its breath for the first time. The Drakari were no longer a single mind. The link remained, but something had shifted within it, no longer command, but conversation. Thought traveled now as ideas, not orders. Disagreement surfaced, uncertainty bloomed. But alongside them came curiosity, reflection, and something stranger still, hope. Throughout the ship, control rooms once cold and angular reshaped. Walls softened their harsh angles. Interfaces pulsed with new color spectrums, previously filtered out as inefficient. The design language of the vessel evolved without blueprints or instructions. It adapted not for battle, but for comfort. Zerthal remained near her. He had no formal position anymore. His rank dissolved with the collapse of the hierarchy. But he stayed, listening, observing. Emily never commanded. She only suggested. And still, things changed around her. One by one, Drakari emerged from the rigid mental structures of their engineered minds. The process was uneven. Some embraced the change with childlike wonder. Others resisted, clinging to structure. A few collapsed entirely, unable to reconcile with emotion. But for the first time, none were forced to conform. They were allowed to be. Emily walked through the halls as they shifted. She sang softly, her voice echoed not just in sound but in intent. Her words didn't control. They reminded. Even those who never spoke back felt it, a warmth without origin, like waking from a dream you thought was life. Val began recording the transformation. Not as data, but as a story. He used symbols, imagery, fragments of recovered dreams. He asked Emily once what she thought the ending would be. She shrugged. Endings aren't real. They just turn into something else. Her words spread faster than protocols ever had. Her art was etched into walls, her melodies shared between crew. Memory now flowed openly, raw and unrefined, but real. Every Drakari who touched the Heartstone felt its weight, not a command structure, but a shared ancestry. The truth of who they had been, and what they could still become. On the outer fringes of the ship's range, other Drakari vessels took notice. They scanned the dreadnought and found inconsistencies. Its signature had changed. The war core no longer functioned. Communication streamed strange signals, unstructured, nonlinear, filled with erratic emotional cadence. They feared contagion. A tribunal assembled aboard the flagship Devourer of Suns. Protocol dictated containment. If memory-based emotional contamination spread, the entire species risked collapse. Orders were issued: isolate, inspect, destroy if necessary. The dreadnought received the warning. Emily didn't panic. She walked to the viewing chamber where the Drakari could see the approaching vessels. She asked for access to transmit. They gave it to her. Her voice reached across the void. Not loud, not commanding, just clear. You don't have to be afraid of yourselves. No tactics. No persuasion. Just a truth they had forgotten how to hear. Inside the tribunal, silence followed. Then argument. Some felt drawn to the signal, reminded of things they couldn't name. Others screamed betrayal. The debate fractured across lines never permitted before, personal ones. No attack came. The Devourer held position. Then a request. Not a demand. They asked to see her. A delegation arrived aboard the dreadnought, 6 high command units, sealed in anti-contamination suits. Emily met them in the transformed core. She didn't lecture. She handed them pictures. Crayon sketches of dragons with flowers, stars with eyes, machines hugging clouds. One of them removed their helmet. They stared at the drawing, unmoving. And cried. Not because it was beautiful, but because it was real. That day, the war protocol was suspended. Not repealed. Not rewritten. Just paused. Drakari history would record this moment as the first divergence. The point at which unity gave way to identity. Where fear of loss was overtaken by the potential of self. Emily never claimed leadership. She refused titles. She stayed on the ship because she liked the dragons and they liked her. Her drawings continued. Her songs changed with time. Some days she danced. Others she sat in quiet thought. But everywhere she went, something followed. A memory that didn't fade. A reminder that even the most engineered minds could rediscover the one thing they were told was weakness. Choice. And from that, everything changed.